The October 21st, 2024 legislative session of the Arundel County Council is called to order. Please ensure all phones and electronic devices are set to silence. Please stand. I will lead us in the invocation and pledge. Let us take a moment to pause and reflect as we begin this meeting. We gather here today with the shared goal of making thoughtful decisions that benefit our community. May we conduct our work with integrity, respect, and fairness. Grant us wisdom as we deliberate, patience as we listen to one another, and compassion as we consider the needs of all our neighbors. Let our actions be guided by a sense of justice and a commitment to the common good. With open minds and open hearts, we seek to build a better, more united community. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, please read the ethics statement.
The Ethics Commission has asked that I advise you that under certain circumstances, members of the public may qualify as lobbyists when they testify before the County Council. If so, the law requires that certain information be filed with the Ethics Commission. The chair of the Ethics Commission has asked that those who wish to testify in any form review the general information on lobbying sheet located on the Ethics website under Forms and Publications. If there are any questions about lobbying requirements, please contact the Ethics Commission at 410-222-4412.
Thank you. Before we open our discussions and public hearings, I would like to remind everyone in attendance, whether testifying or as a member of the audience, we must maintain decorum at all times within these chambers. Please understand that individual conversations in the audience are very disruptive to the proceedings, and I would kindly ask you to step out of the chambers if a side discussion is necessary. We will now open our invitation to audience. This is an opportunity to speak briefly on any subject not included in the printed agenda. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
Yes, Madam Chair. We received one piece which was shared with the Council, added to the record, and posted to the website.
Thank you. We will now call on individuals who signed up ahead of the meeting. When I call your name, please come up to the table and have a seat. When it is your turn, state your name and address for the record. Remarks will be limited to 2 minutes. Please listen for the buzzer and respect the 2-minute time limit as others are signed up to speak as well. I have Jim Buongiorno, very lovely, and Henry Arthur Mueller. You may both come forward at this time. Okay. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Go ahead. Okay, thank you. Buonasera. My name is Jim Buongiorno. I live across the street from Gork Park in Odenton. I've been there for 12 years. I'm here tonight to talk about the field lights being used to light empty fields at Gork Park on a regular basis. I addressed this issue 11 years ago with the county. The lights were on all hours of the day and night back then. I worked with the county. They installed a light box to let the coaches manually turn the lights on and off rather than leaving it on a schedule or a timer. The county gave me access to that same light box. So if a coach forgot to turn the lights off, or if some kids broke into the light box and forgot to turn it off, I would simply walk across the street and turn the lights off. All was right with the world. There were no problems, there were no complaints, until this May, when the Gork Board or Council decided to go back to a schedule system. So the lights are now back on a schedule based presumably on when the coaches indicate that they will be practicing or using the fields. And if the players and the coaches were actually out on those fields under those lights, I would not be here tonight representing myself and my neighbors. But in fact, since May, on virtually any night of any weeknight, those lights are on longer than they should be. I'll give you an example. Last Friday night, the lights were on from 8:30 until 9 o'clock for the 4 back baseball fields, fields 4, 5, 6, and 7. Those didn't go off until 9 o'clock. Field 9, the baseball field, and the multi-purpose field B, the lights were on. That field was empty at 8:30. The lights stayed on until 9:30. And the main football field, the lights, that field was empty by 8:30, and the lights stayed on until 10 o'clock. Does that mean I'm out of time? Okay. I just want to quickly add then, if those are 1,000-watt bulbs in the field 9 and the football field, there are 88 of those bulbs out there. That probably costs about $1,000 an hour to light those fields, those empty fields. And I've worked with the Gork board. I've worked with the county. We're not making any progress to resolving this problem. I'd like to revert back to the old way of doing things, and that was in my online testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else at this time who wants to come forward to speak on something not on the written agenda? Thank you, sir. State your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. My name is Gary Moeller. I live in Jessup, Maryland. And after the last council meeting, it was a discussion about the housing, and there was a lot of thank yous going on that night. And I felt that there was a lot of people's names that got left out that should be recognized for their deep concern for the families and children of Anne Arundel County. So I'd like to mention them because they didn't get mentioned last time. First of all, I think Melanie Hart Davis with the PAB said a lot of things that needed to be said and needed to be heard by you all. Sarah Kimball from the Scenic River Land Trust was very passionate in her support of land. Steve Miller is member of GAN and our, quote, in-house expert on stormwater management. There was a lot of concerns about that in the bill. Matt Meehan, the chairman of GAN, and even, I'm surprised I'm saying this, but Stuart Pittman wrote an excellent letter warning about the dangers of passing this bill until it was ready. And so I was really happy that he did that. Kurt Sendenson, and he was former budget office, his testimony was just unbelievable. And it was amazing to me that that information has been ignored and has not been acted on for years. And then finally, John Flood from the Arundel Rivers Association also had a lot of good things that were all these people were listening to what's been said. Going back 5 years when we started Plan 2040, we went to had outreach sessions. It's just amazing how much testimony the community college has run surveys, and these people have all spoke to what the citizens said they wanted. And finally, I'd like to thank Shannon Ledbetter, Amanda Fiedler, and Nathan Vokey for their vote in support of the families and kids in Anne Arundel County. Thank you.
Invitation to audience is now closed. Is there any item any council member would like to place on the agenda? May I have a motion that the partial reading of any bill, resolution, amendment to a bill or resolution, or minutes constitutes the reading of the whole?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Madam Secretary, please read the minutes of October 7th, 2024.
Minutes of October 7th, 2024. The meeting started at 6 p.m. with the MDOT CTP tour. The council reconvened at 7:20 p.m. The council meeting was called to order by Chair Pickard at 7:20 p.m. It was opened with the invocation given by Mr. Smith and was followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes of October 7th, 2024?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. The minutes of October 7th, 2024 stand approved as read. Madam Secretary, please read the titles of the bills to be introduced this evening.
Bill number 8324, an ordinance concerning approval of the First Amendment to farm rental lease between Anne Arundel County, Maryland and Shady Oaks Turf Farm Incorporated. Bill number 8424, an ordinance concerning Public Works Watershed Protection and Restoration Program, waiver of interest on overdue fees. Bill number 8524, an ordinance concerning pensions, general provisions, purchase service credits, fire service retirements plan, and police service retirement plan.
Madam Secretary, please read the titles of the resolutions to be introduced this evening.
Resolution number 4124, resolution approving the application of Stephen Maurice Parks Jr. to sell an agricultural land preservation easement to the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation on 94.84 acres in Lothian, Maryland. Resolution number 4224, resolution approving the application of Land Preserve LLC to sell an agricultural land preservation easement to the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation on 84.55 acres in Edgewater, Maryland. Resolution number 4324, resolution approving the application of Gary L. Jackson and Julie G. Jackson to sell an agricultural land preservation easement to the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation on 59.91 acres in Lothian, Maryland. Resolution number 4424, resolution approving the application of Virginia R. Garrettson, Dean C. Garrettson, and Dean C. Garrettson Jr. to sell an agricultural land preservation easement to the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation on 48.79 acres in Lothian, Maryland. Resolution number 4524, resolution approving the application of Alan P. Covington and Maxwell H. Covington III individually and as trustees of the Covington Marital Trust to sell an agricultural land preservation easement to the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation on 121 acres in Davidsonville, Maryland. Resolution number 4624, resolution approving the application of Alan P. Covington and Maxwell H. Covington III individually and as trustees of the Covington Marital Trust to sell an agricultural land preservation easement to the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation on 92.6 acres in Davidsonville, Maryland. Resolution number 4724, resolution supporting the Anne Arundel County Board of Education's fiscal year 2026 public school construction capital improvement program request for submission to the Interagency Commission on School construction. Resolution number 4824, resolution approving the terms and conditions of the acquisition of real properties in Gambrels and Millersville, Maryland from Millersville Partners, LLC, utilizing funds from the Advanced Land Acquisition Capital Project.
Well done. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 73-24.
Bill number 7324, an ordinance concerning Carrollton Manor Special Community Benefit District.
This is an administration bill. Mr. Hunt, when your team is assembled, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have Lori Blair Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. Bill 7324 amends the purpose of the Carrollton Manor Special Community Benefits District and adds the acquisition of real property as one of its purposes. We're happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions from my colleagues? Seeing no questions, we'll open the public hearing on Bill 7324. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
Yes, Madam Chair, we received one piece that has been shared with the council, added to the record, and posted to the website.
I have two individuals signed up in advance, Jeff Ratch and Chris Floor. You may come forward and take a seat. Mr. Ratch, whenever you're ready, you have 2 minutes.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Jeff Rock, 659 Shore Road, Severna Park, Maryland. I'm the president of the Carrollton Manor Improvement Association. First of all, I want to just thank the council for allowing us to be here this evening to meet with you. I also want to do a little recognition of Janae Molden, who's on your team, and she was fantastic with us to kind of walk us through this whole process to be compliant, to restructure and to add some language to the charter for our to do an amendment to our charter. The volunteers that are here tonight that knocked door to door to get all the signatures required for compliance on the addition of this language to our charter. Just a lot went into it. So in understanding, I just want to have a common understanding here. The purpose tonight is not geared toward any specific piece of property. Generally, this is to add language to our charter that gives us 3 words that add to purchase real property. We have lots of SCBDs out there have that in their charters already. Ours did not. It was formulated decades and decades ago. We're not sure why it wasn't put in there, but we would now like to add it. Again, Janae walked us through the process to do that. It was pretty arduous, but we had to have a simple majority, 50% plus one. We went way beyond that. We have 600 homes in this neighborhood, and I will tell you that by a vast majority, we have major support from everybody in the community to amend this charter in this fashion. The signatures were gathered by people. It was grassroots effort, door to door, a lot of people in their own personal time. We felt that it was, we had a fiduciary responsibility to our community to bring to them an option for us not at some point to lose, even though this is not tied to anything we're trying to get done, to not lose our community beach as it has been used for decades. And it's not something that we can do on our own. I heard the beeper, sorry.
Thank you.
Just 1 second. But we want to give them an option as something that we can do, that would have to be voted on by the community.
Thank you. Chris Floor?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor, appreciate it. My understanding is that there's some consideration of holding this bill, and I would ask if the board and the county council can explain why. We have complied with all requirements. This is a narrow issue, as I understand, that's before this body, is whether we complied with the requirements to add to our community's charter acquiring real property. Those are the three words that we're asking to put forth. I have not seen the document that was added. I understand that there may be a party from another community that may be objecting to this. They would not have standing to object to this community's ability to change its own charter. We followed all procedures, and I would urge, if there's any consideration of holding this bill, that pursuant to 6105B, that this body calls for a motion to reconsider that decision, because these are all volunteer folks. There's volunteers that come out here tonight. Nobody's getting paid for this time, and I have to come back again to be able to rehear this issue when we followed every single requirement that was asked of us would be unfair to this community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to come forward on Bill 7324 at this time? You may come. Just take a seat. Anyone else? It's 2 minutes before we close the public hearing.
My name is Steve Sharp, resident of Severna Park, director of the Bluff Point Community Association. I represent the community adjacent to Carrollton Manor. The bill as presented under consideration may appear ministerial per se. We have no objection to it. However, it's important to know that if it's adopted, and it has been clearly detailed in the Carrollton Manor website, it's for the purpose of acquiring property that is originally platted, parcel 21, within the Bluff Point Community Association. Proposed use as an expansion of their beach club is in clear conflict with the recorded covenants. These restricted covenants are contained in the association's declarations of covenants, conditions, and restrictions as recorded with the Department of Land records. I can provide the rest of the reference details, but what's important is that the declaration of the association, among many other things, limits the lot for residential purposes only. It prohibits non-residential purposes and prohibits a re-subdivision of these properties, as well as limiting number of guests and many other things. So it is recommended that these factors be taken into consideration pending the parties doing proper due diligence on the real estate records. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Okay, my name is Lisa Bender. I've been a resident of Carrollton Manor since the early 80s. Our community was established in the 1932, which is long before a lot of the areas around us were established. Bluff Point was, when it was going to be developed, there was borderlines between Bluff Point and our community. At one point, some of these pieces of property were in limbo. They were not a part of either community. The couple who owns the lot adjacent to our community beach is open to allow us to perhaps consider extending our beach onto the property we've always used. We've always been aware of the property lines. We've also always been aware it is still going to remain residential. It's not like it's going to be commercialized. There is a Bluff Point property, again, right next to it. The property we are talking about, the resident who owns us lives in Carrollton Manor. And they own this piece of property, this little tiny bit of land that goes between Carrollton Manor and Bluff Point. I think the most important thing to realize is we are one of the oldest and largest communities in Severna Park. We're extremely diverse. And again, we were incorporated and mapped out in 1932. And when we applied for special SCBD, we were one of the original applicants. It was like 1989 or 1990s sometime. I don't even think, we didn't think about the options of buying property. But you live and you learn. We've had the SCBD for many years. We are all volunteer organization. We monitor everything. I just ask you to consider the fact that it's a history. It's part of history too. There is that historical.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir?
Hi, Alex Hushan from Bluff Point as well. I'd like to dovetail a couple of these things together. The fact that the Carrollton Manor Improvement Association has been around for a number of years and decades and has never had the right to purchase real property and has functioned perfectly well for 70, 80, 100 years or so. And that has never been an issue. A comment was made by Mr. Rauch saying that this is actually not an amendment to purchase any particular piece of property. And while on the surface that may be true, I think you have to ask yourself after 100 years of incorporation why this is being brought forward now. And I think the answer is contained simply within the website that they've plainly put on public view to show why they are trying to purchase this, why they're trying to change their charter in order to then acquire a real piece of property which exists within the Bluff Point limits. That piece of property is owned by the Cerbers who currently reside in Bluff Point but also have purchased a piece of Bluff Point property that they have enjoyed. The issue is that the Bluff Point property maintains all the covenants of the land, they run with the land, and it cannot be subdivided. It cannot be used for any other purpose other than residential purposes. The adjacent piece of beach property is currently R5, but also in the 2017 overlay is considered marina property as well. And trying to incorporate that into an R1 RCA territory that is within the confines of Bluff Point seems like it's going to open a Pandora's box and also create issues. I have no problem with Carrollton Manor buying real property. If they have purchasing power and they want to do that, that's okay. But I think what this bill is actually it's an entry into a disaster between two communities that share a border and have been peacefully existing together for a number of years.
Thank you. This panel is dismissed. No. Sir, this panel is dismissed. The public hearing on Bill number 73-24 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 73-24.
Bill number 7324, an ordinance concerning Carrollton Manor Special Community Benefit District.
Mr. Hunt?
I have nothing further to add, Madam Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Fiedler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to make a few comments here. I appreciate both communities communicating with me very swiftly today. Most of the information, if not all of the information that we are hearing here tonight. I just started to hear wind of it on late Friday evening and was not able to confirm or start talking through it with the Office of Law until today. There are lots of pieces to this, and I haven't gotten to sit down and look at the individual pieces. It's my job, I feel, as an elected official representing both communities, for me to be able to understand exactly what's going on all of the different levels. I so appreciate the volunteers doing their work to get the signatures. That my appreciation for your work doesn't change anything. Any action here tonight doesn't change that. But I have to make sure that I do my due diligence and feel that we as a council body have all of the information in making this decision. This is a general change to the SCBD. It does not allow, there would be steps afterwards, but I feel like I really need to understand exactly what's going on and look at some of the documents that have been presented. So with that, I will make a motion to hold this bill until November 4th.
Second.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll on the motion to hold the vote on Bill 73-24 until November 4th, 2024.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
And Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The motion to hold Bill number 7324 until November 4th has passed.
Madam Chair, may I make just real quick?
Oh, yes.
For both communities, please expect a follow-up email from me to schedule various meetings to follow up. Thank you.
The public hearing has been closed on Bill number 73-24, and we will vote on the Bill number 73-24 on November 4th, 2024. That cleared everybody out. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 74-24.
Bill number 7424, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, zoning, farm, dual uses.
Mr. Hunt, this is an administration bill. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning and Lori Blair Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. Bill 7424 makes a revision to the zoning certificate of use requirements for a farm dual use, which was adopted by Bill 6223 last year. This is to address a comment and recommendation made by the Critical Area Commission. The bill essentially does not allow the farm dual uses within the critical area. We're happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of my colleagues at this time? Ms. Ledbetter.
Very simple. I just want to make sure it's on the record. I know we discussed it at the work session. My understanding is that the Ag Commission does support this bill, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions or comments, we'll open the public hearing on Bill number 74-24. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm moving. Ms. Rodvian.
I promise it'll be quick. I really just wanted to disclose that I'm on the Critical Area Commission, but I did not participate in this the process related to this bill.
Okay. We'll now open the public hearing on Bill number 74-24. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
No, Madam Chair, we did not.
We have no one signed up in advance for this bill. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to come forward to speak on Bill 74-24 at this time? Seeing no movement in the audience, the public hearing on Bill 74-24 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 74-24.
Bill number 7424, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, zoning, farm, dual uses.
Is there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill 74-24.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
And Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 7424 is passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill 75-24.
Bill number 7524, an ordinance concerning boards, commissions, and similar bodies, subdivision and development, zoning, development, mixed-use districts.
This is an administration bill. Mr. Hunt, when your team is assembled, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning, Jansen Evelyn, our Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Land Use, and Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. So Bill 7524, I know we discussed it at the work session, but I do just want to give a little more detail about what this bill does. So the objective of this legislation is to revise and update the zoning and development regulations applicable in mixed-use districts in order to better align them with policies and recommendations from Plan 2040 and to provide for more flexibility for future development projects and require development and design standards that will result in well-designed and cohesive mixed-use developments. The bill proposes 5 new mixed-use zoning districts that range in scale, with village mixed use at the lowest end, followed by general, neighborhood, suburban center, and urban mixed use. The 4 existing mixed-use districts will be renamed to one of the new districts, and properties currently mapped to those existing districts will be mapped to the corresponding new district and subject to new zoning and development requirements applicable to the new district. And so just for the record, the MXD mixed-use residential will become the mixed-use neighborhood district, mixed-use commercial will become the mixed-use general district, mixed-use employment becomes the mixed-use suburban center district, and mixed-use transit becomes the mixed-use urban district. The bill also includes an updated use chart for the mixed-use districts using land categories that are similar to those that are currently used in the code. The bill does not include land use percentage requirements, which is something currently required in the existing mixed-use districts because these have become a constraining factor for most development projects in the current market. Instead, this bill simply requires that a mixed-use project include at least one type from at least 2 land use categories, such as residential, retail, and service, office, or civic and institutional. It has no percentage or floor area requirements. There will continue to be minimum open area and open recreation requirements for all development. The bill also requires that all mixed-use development applications include a set of development and design standards, which are to be applicable to the entire site in order to create a unified and well-designed mixed-use development. And now I'd like to turn it over to Jansen just briefly to talk about how this aligns with Plan 2040.
I was going to say that he so perfectly and succinctly summarized everything, but in that case, when you look at Plan 2040, there are several policy areas in the general development plan that this bill touches on, specifically policy BE 7.1 and policy B13, policy B9, and I'm not going to belabor this body by reading each and every one of them, but I was meeting with one of our council members earlier, and I learned that I shouldn't read each and every one out loud, but I do think that this mixed-use bill has the ability to align with Plan 2040, align with the small area, with the SACs that are working to implement the Plan 2040 in a way that fits within their community. And as such, the administration, we believe that this is a well-intentioned bill, but we also have a few amendments that we want to introduce based on continued dialogue with community stakeholders as well as our electeds.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I appreciate the meeting earlier today in reference to the bill. Just for clarification, as I've sort of deep dived into 2040 over the last year, I would say I certainly wasn't a part of that process on that previous body that enacted that. And so I just want to make sure, because a lot of the mixed-use developments, and I think it's like 4 or 5 of the 11, and maybe more, are all within District 1. So this bill has significant impacts to my council district. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that I understood everything that was happening in there and that I could participate in that process to sort of some of the changes that are in the bill itself speaks to the will of the citizens that I represent. And so appreciate you all setting up a meeting here in the near future so that we can talk about some of those potential changes, but definitely wanted to just let the public know that I hear my community. I want to make sure they their interests and their concerns are addressed, and we can meet those within this bill as well. So
No.
thank you, Madam Chair.
No, you're welcome. But yeah, just to quickly react, the administration also hears the community. So we definitely want to ensure that we have that conversation so that as we go forward, our message is clear and concise in terms of what this legislation does and what this legislation does not do.
So we were provided a chart about the existing mixed zoned sites in the county. Thank you, Ms. Miller. It's very informative. With the current mixed use zones. And then on the far side, the potential new mixed zones. So what would have to happen for those zones that are already currently mixed use in our current code to then become, if and when this bill passes, new MXD zones?
Lynn Miller, Planning and Zoning. Excuse me. I'll start by saying the sites on the chart that we sent you, the existing mixed-use sites, the majority of them have most of their phases already approved, if not already in the permitting or even developed. So I'm not sure how many of the sites will need to try to take advantage of this new bill. But if they did have a remaining phase, and that even if it already had an approved plan, but they had not pulled permits yet, and they wanted to come in and revise their plan under the new bill, they could do that. They would just have to submit a new site development plan or maybe preliminary and final plan for that phase of their project.
Okay, thank you. So as we move through the next or the last 6 region plans, if we were to adopt new mixed-use zones, those could be applied prospectively in the next 6 region plans. Is that?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Thank you, that's helpful. Are there any other questions at this time for the panel? Mr. Volke? Oh. Well, without any further questions, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on Bill 75-24. Madam Secretary, did we have any testimony through the online testimony tool?
No, Madam Chair, we did not.
I don't have anyone signed up in advance. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to testify at this time on Bill 75-24? State your name and address for the record, and you have 2 minutes, sir.
My name is Gary Moeller from Jessup, Maryland. I served on Plan 2040 for a couple years, and I've attended the Plan Region 2 planning committees. And the perception that the Jessup community has is that Region 2 was a learning experience failed by planning and zoning. We've seen improvements in other regions, but a lot of things went haywire in Region 2. And I think as Councilman Smith pointed out, a lot of this is in his district. We had an extensive, Mr. Smith had a town meeting in Jessup, and this was brought up and discussed, and we were sure that we weren't going to have to worry about it, and now I'm not sure. The mixed use overlay or recommendation that was in the plant Region 2 would basically destroy Jessup along 175, take down low income, medium income housing, of which already a lot has already been taken down. So it's kind of ironic that one bill you talk about wanting to promote medium income, low income, and the next bill you're putting out plans that would take these houses down. So I hope that you, Mr. Smith, would meet with the community and have a further discussion of this and let us, get the lowdown on what this bill will do to Jessup. Because right now, I lose sleep at night thinking about what's going to happen to West County and Jessup. The one thing I saw in there was 14 stories, R44 housing. That's ludicrous. I mean, they tried that in Baltimore City and other major cities, and it didn't work. So why don't we learn from mistakes made?
Thank you, sir. With no other movement in the audience, the public hearing on Bill 75-24 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill 75-24.
Bill number 7524, an ordinance concerning boards, commissions, and similar bodies, subdivision and development, zoning, development, mixed-use districts.
I know the administration has 4 amendments, but before we start some amendments, I want to make sure I fully understand the nature of this bill. If we were to adopt new mixed-use zones, I think we just established that doesn't mean the county is building anything anywhere, correct? It's just they exist in the code, they can be applied through region planning going forward, and possibly mixed-use zones that already exist could, for land yet to be developed, could apply a new mixed-use category. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, I'd say that's correct.
This is a little off topic, but I also, here on the council, there are 7 districts in the county that roughly have about 85,000 people. When we're talking about 9 region plans, do we understand this? Did we apportion those based on population, or is it really just geographic?
I think they were portioned on a few different factors, but it wasn't just population.
Sure. Okay. There's a lot of people in this county. So when we talk about regions, we're talking about, tens of thousands of individuals with different opinions about how their community should look. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 1.
Amendment number 1. This amendment makes clarifications to the development and design standards for pedestrian circulation systems, building entrances, and structured parking in mixed-use districts.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is exactly what the amendment does. We'd urge you to adopt.
Motion to adopt amendment number 1.
Motion to adopt.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion on amendment number 1? Mr. Smith?
Oh, I just did the motion to adopt. I'm sorry.
Oh. No discussion? Ms. Rodvian?
Thank you. Just to clarify, so this would presumably add a little bit of discretion that's not currently in the bill?
Yes, this is actually based on some comments that we got from some stakeholders after the bill had been introduced.
And I guess I want to ask, obviously the administration is bringing this amendment. Mm-hmm. You feel that this is needed discretion? I'm always advocating for, it looks like what would change here is access and resources for pedestrians.
Right. We do think that it's an improvement to the bill.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 1.
Ms. Rodvian?
Nay.
Ms. Ledbetter?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Volkey?
Aye.
Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Aye.
And Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. Amendment number 1 has been adopted.
Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 2.
Amendment number 2. This amendment adds purpose statements for each of the 5 mixed-use zoning districts.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you'll see, amendment number 2 adds to section 18-8-102, and it gives a purpose paragraph that sort of gives you a description of what each type of mixed-use district is intended to be used for. So mixed-use village, it's intended for small-scale, walkable, low-intensity mixed use. General mixed use is for mixed-use development that has a wide range of general, commercial, and employment uses, combined with residential at low to medium scale. Neighborhood mixed use is intended for mixed use developments that have a variety of residential dwellings in a compact community, and that's where you have the buildings that are up to 8 stories, and as well as a range of retail and employment. And the mixed use suburban is intended for those in medium to large scale suburban centers, and mixed use urban, and that's the most intensive, those are designed for compact high intensity use that includes multifamily residential and retail and employment, and is compatible with a dense urban environment and provides multimodal connectivity throughout the development.
Is there a motion to adopt amendment number 2?
Rodvian, so moved.
Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion on amendment number 2? Mr. Smith?
So do we know what went into, I guess my, not confusion or concern, in my area, some of the areas that are being designated, I think it's mixed use employment right now, and it will be mixed use, I believe, I think that's the correlation that goes from the employment mixed use parcel that exists to the N parcel.
Mr. Smith, I believe employment.
Or is it S? I'm sorry, it's going to S.
12 stories.
I think because we haven't had that discussion yet, the follow-on meeting, some of my comments or future requests might be to change some of that. So I know you have this here. I'm just, like in my heart, I know that I want to change some of the language that's in, at least in the S, certainly, because it's in the in one of the areas that I'm concerned about. But you know, I want to. Is there an opportunity? Is there an appetite to change this language? You know, in the coming weeks or months, if we have the further dialogue. I just didn't want to vote no and not explain why I'm voting no, or if I'll vote yes, but anticipate me coming with some changes.
I appreciate you'll have some proposed changes, but just to be clear, the reason this amendment was introduced was to ensure this was also a response to some of the community advocacy groups, and we want to preempt Councilmember Rodvian. This does make this bill stronger in that it gives definitions as to what.
Right, I agree.
This is what
totally
where it applies. So I think as I understood it, and as I've heard some of your constituents testify, I'm under the impression that you may not want a particular designation to apply in a particular location, not necessarily that there is an issue with the definition per se, but if there's proposed language, I mean, as you're more familiar than I am, I'm sure that if there's proposed language following our discussion, an additional amendment can always be introduced.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Bless you. Bless you.
So these are just descriptive of what's already in the bill regarding these mixed-use zones.
Correct.
There's just a description.
These are just descriptions so that people understand what its intended use is supposed to be for.
And is it fair to say that we currently have mixed-use areas that are intended in each of these designations currently, like the Odenton Town Center or the Parole Town Center, or that already exist to some of this, or no?
No, that's accurate.
Okay. Because there are definitely parts of the county that have buildings of 12 stories.
Correct.
Or low intensity, or want. I mean, I'm looking at some of the lower intensity mixed zones for when we're looking ahead to Region 3. So I understand. Okay. Mr. Volke. Any other questions about amendment number 2? Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 2.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Volkey?
Because this is simply codifying in a clearer way what is already in the bill, I'm an aye.
Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Aye.
And Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 2 has been adopted.
Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 3.
Amendment number 3. This amendment adds a provision previously enacted by Bill number 2024 and allows certain sites in a mixed-use district in the BWI Fort Meade growth area to develop with multifamily dwellings in place of non-residential uses under certain conditions.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you'll recall, so Bill 2024, which was a council-led bill, added this provision into the code for the BWI Fort Meade growth area. As you know, we've been working with the publisher to get the code updated online. And so when this new bill was drafted, it inadvertently would have superseded that provision. So this is merely clarifying what is already in the code.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt amendment number 3?
Rodvian, so moved.
Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion on amendment number 3? I'll just remind my colleagues that Bill 20-24 received a 7-0 vote, unanimous vote of the council. So, seeing no comments, it was my bill. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 3.
Ms. Rodvian?
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Volkey?
Aye.
Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Aye.
And Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 3 has been adopted.
Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 4.
Amendment number 4. This amendment adds certain existing permitted and conditional uses allowed in a W1 district as permitted uses in certain mixed-use districts under certain conditions.
Mr. Hunt?
Yeah, this is all you, Lynn.
I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Miller because this came about as some stakeholder feedback, I believe.
Lynn Miller, OPC. This is actually for a similar reason as the last amendment. This is something that's in the current code now that was omitted from the bill, and we'd like to add it back in.
Is there a motion to adopt amendment number 4?
Rodvian, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on amendment number 4? Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 4.
Ms. Rodvian?
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Volkey?
Aye.
Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Aye.
And Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 4 to Bill 7524 has been adopted.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We will have Bill 7524 before us at our next meeting, November 4th. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 76-24.
Bill number 7624, an ordinance concerning zoning, maritime districts, neighborhood marina zoning district.
Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We discussed this legislation at our work session. This is a cleanup bill to the previously passed legislation that added MA1B to the marina section of our zoning code, and I will have an amendment at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration with Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning and Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. We support this bill. Happy to answer any questions.
Is there any discussion from my colleagues before we open the public hearing on Bill 76-24? Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
No, Madam Chair, we did not.
We have no one signed up in advance. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to come forward to speak on Bill 76-24? Seeing no movement in the audience, the public hearing on Bill 76-24 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 76-24.
Bill number 7624, an ordinance concerning zoning, maritime districts, neighborhood marina zoning district.
Ms. Fiedler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This amendment takes a broader restriction of the,
I actually have to have her read in the
Sorry.
amendment. That's
My
okay.
apologies.
I was just going to think you were going to talk about the bill.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay. Please read amendment number 1, Madam Secretary.
Amendment number 1. This amendment requires the marina caretaker's dwelling unit to be no more than 800 square feet of floor area.
Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This amendment further specifies the exact size that a marina caretaker's dwelling unit or dwelling residence can be. It's very similar to the language that we put in place with ADUs, with the understanding that these are marinas located in neighborhoods, and all of the surrounding residential lots do have the ability to have the ADU with the 800 square foot maximum. And with that, motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Hunt?
We're comfortable with this amendment and appreciate the sponsor's willingness to make a last-minute tweak for clarity.
I just wanted to add that I did share this with the Maritime Advisory Board, and they were pleased with this change.
Okay. Seeing no other questions or comments at this time, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 1.
Ms. Radvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
And Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 1 to Bill 7624 has been adopted.
Thank you. Bill number 76-24 will be heard again on November 4th, 2024. Madam Secretary, please read please read the title of Bill number 77-24.
Bill number 7724, an ordinance concerning licenses and registrations towing companies.
Mr. Volkey, this is your bill. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We discussed this at the work session previously. Thank you all for allowing me to do that quickly. At this point, I'm going to reserve much more in the way of comment other than to say there is an amendment at the appropriate time that comes out of the work session, and I think there may be a few other amendments as we move forward on this legislation, but I would ask for your support on the amendment tonight.
The administration want to weigh in at this time?
Just very briefly, Madam Chair, Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have Captain Tim Schultz from the Police Department, Lori Blair Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. I appreciate the sponsor's willingness to work with us and craft this amendment. So we're happy to answer any questions.
Seeing no questions from my colleagues, we'll open the public hearing on Bill number 77-24. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
No, Madam Chair, we did not.
I have no one signed up to speak. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward and speak on Bill 77-24? Seeing no movement in the audience, the public hearing on Bill number 77-24 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 77-24.
Bill number 7724, an ordinance concerning licenses and registrations towing companies.
Did you have any comments before the amendment? Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 1.
Amendment number 1, this amendment changes the number of heavy-duty tow vehicles to heavy-duty tow vehicles the tow company is required to possess to engage in police-initiated heavy-duty towing from 2 to 1.
Mr. Volkey, this is your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's what the amendment does. Move the amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Hunt?
This was a suggestion that came out of the work session. We appreciate the sponsor putting it in. We'd urge you to adopt it. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 1.
Ms. Radvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
And Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 1 to Bill 7724 has been adopted.
Thank you. Bill number 77-24 will be heard again on November 4th, 2024. Madam Secretary, please read the title of resolution number 40-24.
Resolution number 4024, resolution endorsing financial assistance from the Maryland Economic Development Assistance Fund to Allied Trading, Inc., doing business as PWRQ.
Mr. Hunt, this is your resolution. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have Amy Gowan, the Director of the Anne Arundel County Economic Development Corporation, and Lori Blair Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. So you'll remember we did discuss this at the work session, but Power PWRQ manufactures panel boards and switchboards across various industries such as hyperscale and computing, renewables, electric vehicle infrastructure, healthcare and pharmaceuticals, transportation and transit, and more. They're expanding their headquarters and manufacturing operations in Anne Arundel County. Currently, they operate out of a 32,000 square foot facility at 7235 Standard Drive in Hanover, and will be leasing an additional 155,000 square feet at 7200 Standard Drive. Power PWRQ will be retaining their existing 34 full-time employees, as well as hiring an additional 160 full-time employees, for a total of 194 permanent full-time employees by December 31st, 2029. Total cost of this project is estimated to be $8.8 million. To support this expansion, EDC has been working with the Maryland Department of Commerce, which has agreed to provide a conditional loan from the Maryland Economic Development Assistance Fund. That loan amount is $780,000. In order for the company to receive this loan, the state requires that the county, or rather Anne Arundel County Economic Development Corporation, provide a 10% match. The state also requires the county to pass a council resolution confirming that the county supports the state and county's assistance. EDC will provide a 10% match of $78,000 in the form of a conditional loan, and if Power PWRQ invests the amount of capital that they estimate and hire the number of employees that they estimate by December 31st, 2029, the loan will be converted to a grant. EDC has included funding for this project in their current budget, and the funds will be used for machinery, equipment, furniture, fixtures, tenant improvements, and other associated costs with the new facility at 7200 Standard Drive. I'm not sure if Amy wants to add anything else.
Ms. Gowan?
Nothing to add. Thank you so much. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of my colleagues regarding resolution number 40-24 at this time? Seeing that no discussion, we'll open the public hearing on resolution 40-24. We did not have anyone sign up in advance. Did we receive any testimony, Madam Secretary?
No, we did not.
If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward to give testimony on resolution number 40-24, you may come forward now. Seeing no movement in the audience, the public hearing on resolution 40-24 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of resolution number 40-24.
Resolution number 4024, resolution endorsing financial assistance from the Maryland Economic Development Assistance Fund to Allied Trading, Inc., doing business as PWRQ.
Ms. Rodvian.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for your work in bringing this expansion to Anne Arundel County.
Seems like a good week, Business Appreciation Week. Any other discussion? As a reminder, resolutions may be amended and voted on the same night. Well, we're not amending this that I'm aware of. So, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on resolution number 40-24.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
And Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Resolution number 4024 has been adopted.
Thank you. At this time, we will discuss the county executive's veto to bill number 70-24, crimes, civil offenses and fines, crimes, miscellaneous prohibitive acts, which this council passed on October 7th. Via the county charter, the county council may discuss or override any legislative vetoes at the next legislative session following the veto, which is why we are discussing bill number 70-24 this evening. On October 18th, the county executive sent the county council a letter issuing a veto to bill number 70-24. Does any council member wish to make a statement about this veto? Mr. Volkey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As this was my bill, I'd like to just speak briefly about it. So I was a little surprised that this was the first bill, it looks like, in 6 years that the county executive decided to veto. We did have a hearing on this bill at the last meeting. It was voted on by the council. It was passed 4-3, so I know it was not exactly a party line vote, but it was a tight vote. But with that, I do hearken back to the things that the police department shared, which were that this bill is really educational in nature. It was not intended to be punitive. The intent of this bill was to create a lawful purpose for the police to be able to approach and educate individuals who may be occupying a recreational vehicle on a county roadway, so that they could advise them of some of the safety hazards that existed, and certainly to give them the opportunity to move along. And we even had some discussion at the last meeting about other places that someone could go with a recreational vehicle, such as some of the stores that are open for that, such as Walmart. So with that, I think that this does make some sense to have in our county code, and I would ask my colleagues to override the veto. So with that, I would make a motion that we override the county executive's veto.
Fiedler, second.
Any discussion of my colleagues?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Smith?
Was this an effort that was derived from the police department when you first generated this resolution?
No. So as I talked about the last time, this was constituent driven. I had constituents who brought this to me. It was then at that point that the police department reviewed it and then weighed in on the legislation and was supportive of the legislation at that point.
Ms. Fiedler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I actually brought this bill up at the Eastern District PCRC meeting, Police Community Relations Council meeting. And the folks, the residents there were very appreciative of it. And they had a question, and I think I answered it the right way. But without this bill, anyone can park an RV on a public roadway in a community if the community doesn't have on-street storage covenants. Can park on a county road in a community, and there is nothing that prohibits them from doing that and residing in it without this, absent this bill.
I do believe that's correct, yes.
Okay, and I think the feedback from the folks at that meeting were that they thought that this was a good idea because they had concerns that it could happen in their neighborhood as well.
Seeing no further discussion, Madam Secretary, please call the roll to override the veto to Bill number 70-24.
Ms. Rodvian?
Just to clarify, we're voting on yay would be yes, override, nay would be no, do not override.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Nay.
Ms. Ledbetter?
Yay.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Aye, for the record. Apologies.
Thank you, Ms. Ledbetter. Mr. Volkey?
Aye.
Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Yes to override.
Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. The bill number 70-24's veto has been overridden.
Thank you. Bill number 70-24 will go into effect on December 5th, 2024. Is there any other business any council member would like to bring before the county council at this time? May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Yay. Sorry.
The county council is adjourned until Monday, November 4th, 2024 for our next legislative session here in our chambers. Have a great night and be safe.